Hi, I'm Norm Trebilcock. Let me tell you my story. My story all started when I was born on October 12, 1891 in Fifth Creek, South Australia. I was baptised on July 10, 1892 in St. Paul's Church of England, Montacute. My father was Adam Trebilcock, born in 1861 in Darley, South Australia, and my mother Nellie Lana was born in 1866 in Goodwood, South Australia. When they married in 1886, my mother was 6 years younger than my father. I had 4 siblings, Reg, Ida, Bert and Marjorie. The 2 girls and my mother sadly passed away from TB. Mum aged 38 and Ida aged 15, both in 1905, and Marjorie in 1907 aged 11. As a child I spent all my days never venturing far from Montacute. I attended the local school, which in those days was a 2-story building, the top floor being the schoolroom and underneath was a stable for those who rode horses. I then worked with my father on his market garden and jam factory. The property was called the Poplars. On September 7, 1914 I joined the army and sailed off to war, going to Cairo, Gallipoli and France. In November 1917, AIF orders authorized the wearing of a small badge in the form of the letter A on unit color patches to denote that the wearer had taken part in the 1915 Gallipoli campaign. It was later prescribed that the badge would be a brass letter 3/4 of an inch high. The Anzac Commemorative Medallion was instituted 1967. It was awarded to surviving members of the Australian forces who served on the Gallipoli Peninsula or in direct support of the operations from close offshore, at any time during the period from the first Anzac Day in April 1915 to the date of final evacuation in January 1916. Next of kin or other entitled persons are entitled to receive the medallion on behalf of their relatives if the medallion has not been issued. This medallion was issued to my son Brian, who was in possession of my other war medals. Sometime in 1918 I was wounded in the left thigh and was sent to England. A girl called Violet was working at a place called the Red Bungalow at Tidworth. On her afternoons off, among other things, she would go walking. I would exercise my colonel's horses, and one day I went in the vicinity of Tidworth. This is where we met, so it is not hard to guess that the colonel's horses were often exercised in that area. Eventually I popped the question. I married Violet Ralph on December 7, 1918 at age 27 in Chilbolton, England. She was born in 1893 in Long Parish, England. She was 24 years old when we married, 3 years younger than me. Violet had to get everything ready for the wedding and wait to be notified when my leave was imminent. My brother Reg was to be best man and a friend of Violet's was to be the bridesmaid. No one thought to invite anyone from the village, as not a lot of advance notice was given when soldiers were to be granted leave, so it was lucky that my brother and bridesmaid were both in England, so everything worked out well. The rest of the Ralph family of course were there. Apparently the people in the village were disappointed that they didn't know the wedding was taking place, as they all said they would have come. The Ralphs lived almost opposite the church, so they walked over. Afterwards they all returned to the cottage for our small reception. Grandmother Ralph had bought a bottle of champagne in honor of the occasion. Grandfather Ralph would not partake as he was a Calvinist Methodist and said that stuff would not pass his lips, so grandmother drank it and remarked that she felt a lot better for it. Sometime in 1919 the troops were sent back to Australia, complete with our new wives. We sailed on the Bremen, arriving at Outer Harbour on July 23, 1919. Apparently nearly all the people of Montacute were there to greet the ship, as there were 2 couples arriving. We journeyed from Outer Harbour to Montacute in a pony and trap, which is a fair hike in a car, so took a long time, with Violet about 6 months pregnant. Soon after a reception was arranged and everything was set up in the big shed. Violet had to stay inside until all was ready, then Winifred, my step-sister, went in to get her, presenting her with a bunch of violets as her bouquet, saying, "Isn't it lucky that your name is Violet?" "Here Comes the Bride" was sung as she was escorted out to the shed, which was decorated with streamers and violets everywhere. My army colors were crisscrossed over the tables. Mr. and Mrs. Kerno, who travelled out on the same ship, also held a reception the same day, and when the guests had eaten and drunk everything that was available, they walked over to Sixth Creek to the Kernos and finished the day there. I brought back to Australia 2 souvenirs, a cigarette case and an obelisk from Egypt, which are now in the possession of my granddaughter Wendy. We lived at the Poplars for a short period of time, but Violet didn't get on with my stepmother, so we moved into the house on the block of land called California. The old place has had a hard life since then. In about 1923 we built our own home, which Violet named Monomeat, which means a place of beauty. We had 5 children, all born in South Australia. Our eldest Len was born in 1919. Followed by Marge in 1920, June in 1923, Kath in 1925, and finally our youngest, Brian, in 1927. In 1942, at age 50, I enlisted in the Army during World War II and served in the Home Guard. During summer every year since about the mid-1930s, Violet and I spent time at the Council Caravan Park in Victor Harbor. Sadly, on May 15, 1961, at age 69, I was tragically killed when the tractor I was driving jackknifed and I was trapped under the trailer. I was buried in Derrick Gardens at Centennial Park Cemetery. I'm so glad I got to share my story with you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. That's it for now.